I am here with a story time for you. I'm going to be talking about the time that I took a course and there was a gang stalker there. Now, I have gang stalkers normally in every facet of my life that they're normally well behaved, so I don't normally have to go the route that I went in this story that I'm about to tell you. However, this particular individual was messy, and I had to do what I had to do, which is not much because I'm a Christian. I just leave it in the Lord's hands, but I'm going to tell you how I went about that. So I took a cooking course. It was about 7 months long, and I did it initially because I was inspired by the Instagram slash influencer, momfluencer Nara Smith. Her lifestyle was very much aesthetic, and I loved how she kind of brought a very simple and homey vibe to baking. I don't know if that makes sense. I mean, baking is kind of a homey vibe anyway, but she made it look very simple and it was very inviting. So I was like, you know what? I don't really know how to cook too well, and I definitely don't know how to bake. So let me sign up for this baking course and see where I can go with it. So I signed up for a baking course. It was a diploma program. It was about 7 months long. And before that, I had booked a trip to Europe. Perfect, right? So I went on the trip to Europe, did a little backpacking shindig, little shenanigans in Europe for a couple months. Came back from that, and a couple weeks maybe later, I started the baking course. First things first, remember I told you I have no experience baking. So it was very much, not only I was nervous because I was new to baking, but I was nervous because starting out I didn't really know a lot of the verbiage, a lot of the things that they were talking about. I was just worried I was going to get left behind, and I already have a learning disability or two. So I was stressed. And the first couple of weeks of class were very stressful. I actually got to the point where we were doing the math portion of it. And the math for the baking course that I was taking, to the average person it's simple, but to me, I'm not a math whiz. And math was a subject I always struggled with in class. So we got to the math portion, and I feel like I started to get a little stressed. Anyway, we would do classroom hours where we'd be in the classroom and we would learn things like math, um, baker's math, of course. And then we would go over like concepts related to baking, definitions, vocabulary, all the things that we would need to know once we got into the kitchen, and some history and culinary related things related to different cultures, if that makes sense, like France and Italy and things like that. So when we would go into the kitchen, we would bake what we would go over in the classroom as well, because in the classroom not only we were learning things, we were also going over items that we were going to bake. The instructor was going over each item that we were supposed to bake, if there were any changes, and if we had any questions, they would go over it with us. And in the kitchen, it was everything that we needed to bake, and we all had our own places, and there were procedures that we had gone over prior to being in the kitchen, so we kind of knew how to operate. Anyway, so I had already decided where I was going to sit for that time, and the gang stalker that is in question, right, the one I'm about to talk about, this person, I'm going to call them Anathoth for the sake of the story, right? So Anathoth, at the beginning of class, where I chose to sit, they weren't sitting in the same table as I was at that time. First, we were sitting separate tables, but over the course of the class, I decided to move closer to Anathoth because at the time, Anathoth seemed cool. Anathoth was like very silly, very whimsical, kind of like my type of personality when it comes to like people that I tend to gravitate towards, especially when you're in a stressful environment. You don't want to be around somebody that's too serious or somebody that's like high stress or like what do you call that, high strung. It just makes the environment more stressful. So I was like, okay. So at some point I gravitated to the table where Anathoth was sitting and sat right across from them in the kitchen. And it was cool. Like we started baking. The kitchen time was timed, and we were graded based on like our presentation, the taste, and a few other criteria that I can't really call up at the moment. And during the time that we were all the classmates were moving around, cooking their items. There were about 10 of us in the classroom. And me and Anna thought we were vibing. Like if she needed to borrow something, she could borrow my stuff. If I needed to borrow something, she had it. Then I could borrow her stuff. And then we were like, there was the excuse me's, the thank yous, the pleasantries. We were laughing, giggling. It was funny. It was cool. We were getting it. And then also what made me vibe with Anna Thoth is we were kind of at the same, not the same, I don't want to say exactly the same level of baking experience, because she had like prior baking experience baking with her mom at home with like simple items, but comparable to other students and most of the other students in the classroom, her and I were a little bit closer in our experience and how we were able to bake the items that were required for each class. So maybe I would say not maybe a week in, because the classes were Monday through Friday for every week for 7 months, unless there was a holiday, then we would have that day off. And Anna Thoth, I don't know, I started to get very weird giggly vibes from her. Like she would do this one laugh and I started to pick up on it that it was like a nervous, but like I can't explain it. I'm very intuitive, so this is hard to articulate to a person that doesn't understand where I'm coming from. But she started doing this laugh. I was like, and I started to pick up on it. But when I first started to pick up on it, I couldn't connect it to anything. But I did take note of it when she first started to do it, and I picked up on it. Then I start noticing that something of mine goes missing. When we started class, we all got tools like utensils and kitchen and baking items. It came in a kit when we started class, and we had to label all of our items. Well, one of my items went missing. To be fair, I can be very forgetful, and sometimes I do forget or misplace things. So, but how do I explain it? I do it so often, I'm kind of familiar with what that pattern looks like for me. So most of the time, I'm talking about like 85 to 90% of the time, if something goes missing, I can kind of pick up on the pattern, like the time, what it was, how it went missing, the last time I saw it, and in my mind I can think like, okay, it was something I actually lost or something else is going on. I'm really good at that. I've gotten really good at that. So with this thing, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to be like, so I was like, I can't find this, and I'm like, what's going on? And there was another individual at the same table that we were at, because each table had about 4 people at it, and we were sharing items with her as well, and we all were just sharing, right? But I was like looking for it, and I'm like, okay, well, I ended up losing it, and it didn't come back up. And then I start noticing that Anna Thoth begins to be less friendly, less giggly, less cool, more she's starting to come off as like less helpful. She doesn't want to be, she seems to be a little more standoffish, a little more closed off. And then I notice she starts telling me about her life, but it's in a way that I can tell she's trying to show off. Like, this is her opportunity to show me how good she is for whatever reason. I don't know why people do this. Like, it got to that point in the interaction, right? So she's showing me all these videos. Mind you, she has a motorbike, And then also sometimes she would drive a white car that she said she borrowed from her dad's friend. And if you guys know anything about gang stalkers, you know most of them tend to drive white cars. Anyway, so she would drive that, or she would drive her motorbike into school. So she's showing me all these videos of her and her boyfriend, which I guess she says he's like quite older than her, and driving a bike, and she's like, "Ooh, don't I look hot?" And like, you know, whatever. Kids are girls or girls or whatever. They're gonna do whatever, say whatever. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." Like, I really genuinely think it's cool. I'm like, "You riding a bike? You're this young? Like, wow, this is impressive. And you drive a truck too?" And like, it was like I was vibing. I wasn't tripping at all. But I started to notice as time progressed, it was more and more about her trying to show off, and it was less about her just being how she was when we first started interacting in the class. Then fast forward, something else of mine goes missing, and it's long before we're done cooking, because the first item went missing, and I noticed it when it was almost time to leave or get done with cooking our items. This time, this item went missing, and it was in the middle of us cooking. So I'm like, oh wow, it just went missing, because I just saw it, and I remember just seeing it at the end of the table. So I'm like looking around, and then I ask her, because at this point now I'm starting to get suspicious, and she's acting funny, acting weird, like, and then the nervous laugh comes in, the and she starts, now throughout for the rest of the course, for the rest of the day when we're cooking, right, this period of the day, she's like doing that nervous laugh every now and again, and I'm starting to pick up on it. Okay, and I'm like, okay, now I see the behavior is matching up. So I'm like, okay, at this point I'm still like, okay, well, I didn't see her take it, so it is what it is, and I let it go. Fast forward some more. I'm not gonna take too much time. We're talking about more of her boyfriend and her bike riding and stuff, and then she tells me we're talking about where they live at, and she happens to live at the time with her boyfriend by where I live at. And then when I tell her kind of where I'm living near, she's like, "Oh yeah, we ride by there sometimes." And I don't know if you guys know this also with the gang stalkers and the noise harassment. They do that with bikes too. They do it with high exhaust cars, and they also do it with bikes. And that triggered my memory in my mind, I'm like, okay, taking another note. My mind is there. Boom. I'm on key. So then, fast forward some more. Another one of my items goes missing, and it was like a bag. I think it was my entire bag, actually, and it was one of the other people in the classroom. Apparently, they had accidentally taken my bag with them, and like I was saying earlier, we have to color code. Like, our bags are color coded with tape. Well, I think everybody's was. Maybe I just did mine. I had done mine with hot pink tape. So I'm thinking, how could she do that? And I'm thinking, maybe this is another gang stalker, but I could never confirm, so I had to let that one go. But then fast forward again, something else of mine goes missing. And mind you, at this point, I'm one of the only few people that stuff's going missing. There's maybe one other person that their stuff goes missing once. But other than that, I'm the only person in that class where my stuff is going missing consistently at this point. So now I'm starting to put things together, and then I'm like, okay. So I figured out that it is her. In my mind, right? I've decided at that point. So I start talking to one of the other individuals in the class, and they tell me that one time when they were talking to her, that the Anathoth was saying pretty much that she practices magic, that she does witchcraft, and they were telling me that that's her thing, and I'm like, yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. And this was after I was talking to the person, and I was telling them, I'm like, and I've been praying about it. I'm asking God, I'm like, if this person does not stop, I'm gonna have the Lord remove them from the class, because I can't keep doing this. And I had to do that because I felt helpless, because at first when I started to ask the teacher and bring up that my stuff continually was going missing, the instructors were acting like they didn't want to do anything about it at first. I'm like, okay, so now I'm at a loss. So now I really had to give it to God, because I'm not going to sit up here and turn up and act a fool. And if you guys aren't going to help me, then I started to feel a little helpless before I decided, I'm like, okay, let me just stop and calm down. And I was really upset. So after this other individual told me about the girl who told them that they were doing magic and that they do practice witchcraft, right? I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense, because people who do practice witchcraft, they do take items, and that's a part of their witchcraft as well. And people, and the gang stalker thing, that was a whole other thing as well. So I'm like, okay, bet. So I don't know if another one of my items went missing, or if I had decided, I'm like, I asked the Lord again, and I'm like, Lord, if this individual is who I really think it is that's taking my things, and they continue to take my items, and they are relentless and they will not stop, then please remove them from the class, because I can't. And I had already prayed a prayer before the prayer that I prayed, that I told the other individual about. That was just pretty much like, can you please just show me like where, if have my items turn up. So my item goes missing again, and then Anathoth is absent from class. She comes back, and I find out that she got into some type of issue. I don't know, but I noticed that she has like a stench. Like, she smells like she's been, you know how home, like being outside, like she smells like she's been unhoused, right? And she's going through it. And then some time goes by, and then she goes missing for a long time from class. Then she comes back after like a couple weeks, I feel like, and she says, oh, I got into a motor wreck, and it was really, really bad. I was in the hospital. And then she ends up leaving class, and they said that she had to drop out because she had missed too much class and she couldn't catch up. The Lord, right? Because the Lord would not have done that if it wasn't a problem. You know what I mean? Like, if she wasn't a problem, I don't really think that would have ended up happening. And even before that, when I had gone, one of my last items had gone missing. I remember talking to one of the instructors I had, and I'm like, I feel like it's her. And I tell him in confidence, right? Because out of all of them, I felt like he was kind of like the most real one I could talk to about, and wasn't going to gaslight me and act like it was just like we're in I don't know, like it was like fake or something. And I'm like, if it goes missing again, I'm not going to lie to you. I think I said something to the effect of, she's not going to be here for very much longer, or whatever the case may be. And I ended up talking to another instructor, and I told her, and I'm like, I'm probably going to drop out of class. This is when I was feeling like I was upset. I was like, I feeling like giving up. I was really upset. And I was really sad, and I felt helpless, like, because nobody was acting like they wanted to do anything about it. Like, stuff is going missing. If I decided to go up and run up in here and take some stuff, y'all figure it out real quick. If I decided to be a thief up in here, but somehow my stuff is going missing, and everybody's acting like it's like a regular day. Like, oh, okay, like these are items that I need to cook. Like, this expensive. Like, what are you talking about? And I was upset, right? Anyways, so she ends up leaving class, right? She couldn't come back. And I can just remember the series of events leading up to that when I was praying, and it really strengthened my faith. And that's pretty much the gist of it. When I had a gang stalker that was messy in one of my courses, they're in every facet of my life. They stay doing what they do best, right? But this one, she really didn't know her boundaries spiritually. I mean, obviously, because it didn't take very much praying. I didn't even have to go on a fast. I just had to ask God a couple times, and he took care of it like that, right? But yeah, that's my story about that. I hope you guys are doing good. Have a great, wonderful day, guys.